Every morning, as soon as you open your eyes, what do you do first? Rush to the bathroom or immediately reach for a glass of water? How about a cup of coffee? Did you know that this first action many people do automatically can actually negatively affect your kidney health? After 20 years of working in nephrology, I came to one truly shocking conclusion. The main reason for kidney deterioration is hidden in morning habits, especially the first 30 minutes after waking up. Recently, Professor of Nephrology, 74-year-old Lijeha, shared his story. He confessed that for many years, he had performed 4 simple morning actions that seemed completely harmless. However,
Reviewed the
it was
results,
they,
and we
already in
need
their
to discuss
50s,
some
who led to a
serious
noticeable
findings.
decline in kidney function.
Please, Doctor.
Only by changing these habits did he discover after 10 years that his kidneys were 20 years younger than his passport age. Friends, this story contains facts that could save your life. If you watch it to the end, you'll understand how serious it is, and if you ignore it, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. According to national statistics, 1 in 9 adults suffers from chronic kidney diseases, and shockingly, 95% of them are unaware of their diagnosis. The kidneys are called a silent organ, and their functions can be impaired by half before a person notices any symptoms. When swelling, shortness of breath, or foam in the urine appears, it means the situation has gone too far, and there is no turning back. It is believed that the main causes of kidney failure are diabetes and hypertension, and this is indeed true. But in reality, improper morning habits are the starting point for most diseases. Let me give an example. 69-year-old Mr. Kim had followed the same morning routine for many years, and suddenly his legs began to swell significantly. An examination revealed that kidney function was only at 30%. Doctors strongly recommended preparing for dialysis, but instead he changed just 4 morning habits, and a real miracle happened. Consider that right now, 1 million nephrons, tiny filters, are dying in each of your kidneys, and none of them will ever recover. If you do not change your actions today, in 10 to 20 years, you might find yourself in a situation like Mr. Kim. So, what are these habits? First, what you drink right after waking up can become a real poison for your kidneys. Secondly, certain breakfast dishes that many cannot imagine their morning without are slowly but surely damaging the kidneys. And thirdly, some actions that people ignore, citing busyness, can threaten kidney function. The fourth habit, which seems beneficial and healthy, actually causes serious harm to your kidneys daily, like a grenade. Professor Lee emphasizes that the first 30 minutes after waking up play a key role. It is precisely these that determine the functioning of the kidneys for the next 24 hours, and in the long term can affect an entire life. Friends, if you knew that your daily habits were leading to unnoticed demise, would you continue to live this way? In this material, we will examine the 4 main morning enemies of the kidneys and discuss what new habits can help maintain health. Did you know that the first thing most people reach for in the morning is a cup of coffee? It is precisely from this that millions start their day, and it is indeed the treacherous enemy of your kidneys. Some may think it is not worth dramatizing, but, friends, this is not just about a habit, but about life and death. Therefore, I repeat this over and over so that everyone understands the seriousness of the problem. Let me tell the story of a woman who was 67 years old. For 30 years, she got up exactly at 6 every morning, went to the bathroom, and then gulped down a cup of black Americano. She took pride in this morning ritual. But one day she was taken to intensive care. Why? Because caffeine on an empty stomach sharply narrows blood vessels, especially the capillaries supplying the kidneys. The volume of blood passing through them decreases by almost a third. The kidneys find themselves in a state of suffocation. And this is just the beginning. In response to stress, they start releasing the hormone renin into the blood, which increases blood pressure by 20 to 30 units. As a result, the most fragile of millions of kidney glomeruli begin to burst, and they cannot recover. Another story is about Mr. Pak, who is 73 years old. For 20 years, every morning he drank a double espresso on an empty stomach. One day he noticed that his urine had become very foamy. An examination showed that there was a lot of protein in it. This meant that the kidney filters had deteriorated so much that they could no longer retain essential protein molecules. But that's not all. Caffeine sharply increases the excretion of calcium and magnesium in urine. Imagine, after drinking a cup of coffee on an empty stomach, you lose 3 times more calcium than usual. These minerals accumulate in the kidneys and form stones. Did you know that 60% of kidney stones form this way? And now, an even more alarming fact. Regular soluble coffee with sugar and cream, which seems soft and harmless to many. Mrs. Chen, who was 65 years old, drank 2 servings of this beverage every morning. She believed that sweetness gave her energy, so it was beneficial. But this coffee turned out to be much more dangerous. It contained sugar and artificial sweeteners. They sharply raise blood sugar levels, overload the kidneys, and can soon lead to severe complications like diabetic nephropathy. Remember, each cup of coffee on an empty stomach is a small explosion inside your kidneys. Caffeine activates the adrenal glands, leading to cortisol and adrenaline entering the bloodstream. These hormones further constrict blood vessels, provoking inflammatory processes and damaging tissues. From 7 to 9 in the morning, cortisol levels peak. If coffee is added by this time, its level jumps 5 times above the allowable norm, and the excess cortisol begins to directly attack kidney cells, causing inflammation and fibrosis, making the kidneys hard. This is especially dangerous for the elderly. In young people, caffeine is eliminated from the body in 6 hours. However, after 60, this process slows down to 12 or even 18 hours. This means that a morning cup of coffee continues to have a destructive effect on your kidneys until the evening. Even if you do not feel any problems now, believe me, the process is underway, and when the first alarming symptoms appear, restoring health will be extremely difficult, so it is better to choose health and refuse coffee for breakfast. But friends, this is only the first of 4 habits that can harm your health. The next one is even more surprising. It's hard to imagine a traditional breakfast, especially in our culture, without hot soup. Imagine that most of us have a bowl of hot soup for breakfast in the morning. For some, it's cabbage soup. For others, borscht or pickle soup, or simply noodles in broth. Without this, it seems hard to imagine a Russian person's morning. But did you know that this very bowl of soup becomes poison for your kidneys every day? Let's consider the case of Mr. Kim, who is 71 years old and has lived his entire life in Primorsky Krai. Every morning, he ate 2 bowls of broth made with fish and soy sauce. Salted cabbage and pickled fish were part of his diet. One winter day, his legs began to swell and he couldn't wear shoes. In the hospital, the doctors were perplexed, as his kidney function was only at 20%. The blood creatinine level was 5 times higher than normal, and the diagnosis was clear: lifelong dialysis therapy. Do you know how much salt is in a bowl of soup? In shchi or borscht, about 5 grams, and in a bowl of noodles with broth, 6 grams or more. The World Health Organization recommends that an adult consume no more than 5 grams of salt per day, meaning 1 bowl of soup already exceeds the daily limit. What happens in the body? The sodium level in the blood sharply rises, and to dilute this concentration, the body begins to draw water directly into the vessels. Blood volume increases, pressure rises, and ultimately, the small vessels in the kidneys burst under this pressure. But the most terrifying part is that salt accumulates in the kidneys themselves. For example, Mrs. Cho, who is 68 years old, has started every breakfast for 20 years with noodles and always drank the broth to the last drop. Sodium crystals formed in her kidneys, gradually turning the organ into a hard stone. In medicine, this condition is called salty kidneys, and there is no turning back. Don't think that if the soup isn't too salty, it's safe. Even light broths made from seaweed or mushrooms can be a sodium bomb. Store-bought bouillon cubes and packaged broths are a mix of salt, monosodium glutamate, and chemical flavor enhancers that harm kidney cells, provoking inflammation. Even those who make broths from fish or meat bones at home face danger. Anchovies and herring contain a large amount of sodium. Up to 3 grams of salt can leach from several small fish into the broth, and you may not even realize how it happens. The mechanism of organ destruction is simple. Sodium penetrates kidney cells, causing them to swell, leading to pressure against each other and constriction of blood vessels. Blood flow is disrupted, and tissues begin to die. In their place, dense scar tissue forms, compressing the kidney and making it shriveled and non-functional. Friends, if you consume broth soup every day, in 10 to 20 years you will find yourself in the center of dialysis. Today, everything seems normal, but the process is slow and relentless. And the most insidious thing is that many think, I drink soup for health, but that is self-deception. Your kidneys lose their chance for a long life with every sip of salty broth. And if you think this is the limit, you are mistaken. The third habit is even more dangerous. It is something we consider harmless, or even beneficial. In reality, it plunges a knife into your kidneys every morning. Do you know how many people start their day without drinking a drop of water? Some rush to work, some don't want to go to the bathroom, and some just aren't used to it. But this seemingly minor detail plants a bomb under your kidneys. The story of a 66-year-old lady is illustrative. She preferred tea over water her entire life, drinking barley or corn tea in the morning, claiming that water is tasteless, and consuming at most 1 or 2 glasses of pure water a day. Last summer, she was unexpectedly seized by severe pain in her lower back, and an ambulance had to be called. It turned out she had 3 large stones in her kidneys, the largest being the size of a chicken egg. The operation cost over 300,000 rubles, and her kidney functions never fully recovered. Why did this happen? Let's figure it out. While we sleep for 7 to 8 hours, the body loses moisture. We breathe, sweat, and no new water comes in. In the morning, our blood becomes thick like sticky porridge, and when this thick blood tries to pass through the tiniest vessels of the kidneys, the strain becomes colossal. The kidneys, in a state of dehydration, must save every drop. They concentrate the urine as much as possible to recycle the water. At this moment, salts and minerals begin to bond into crystals, forming stones. A small crystal grows over time, turning into a boulder that can block the ureter. Now imagine chronic dehydration. Mr. Chan, 72 years old, had always drunk little water, quenching his thirst with juices or sweet soda. In the 60s, his kidneys began to shrink, wrinkle, and harden. Gradually, the organ's function declined, but he felt nothing. By the time he noticed, it was already too late. Why is dehydration so dangerous? With a lack of water, the concentration of toxins in the blood sharply increases. The kidneys are forced to filter this toxic cocktail, straining to the limit. Their cells gradually die, and scar tissue forms in their place. Thus, the kidneys begin to turn into stone formations. But this is just one of the problems. With a lack of water, circulation worsens, and the kidney tissues do not receive the necessary oxygen. Cells begin to suffocate and die. A condition known in medicine as ischemic kidney damage, and unfortunately, this state is irreversible. Moreover, there is another insidious trap: drinks containing caffeine. Mrs. Khan, who is 69 years old, was confident that she drinks enough fluids, starting her morning with coffee and continuing with green tea. However, these drinks only worsen dehydration, as caffeine acts as a diuretic. Thus, you lose more fluid than you gain, leading to a vicious cycle. The main threat of water shortage is the concentration of toxins. Without fluid, they do not dilute and settle in the kidneys, causing inflammation. Chronic inflammation leads to fibrosis, and the kidneys become hard and dead. Remember that every morning, until you drink a glass of water, millions of filters in the kidneys gradually clog. Today you don't feel it, but in 10 years, you might find yourself on the operating table. Yes, this is reality. For the kidneys, maintaining water balance is vital. However, there is another habit that is equally dangerous. Many consider it fashionable and beneficial: skipping breakfast. This is the third blow to the kidneys. How many people completely skip breakfast in the mornings? Some are hurrying to work, some want to lose weight, and some simply do not feel hungry. Intermittent fasting is currently a popular topic online, and many proudly skip breakfast, believing they are doing themselves good. But do you know that in this way, you are daily bringing your kidneys closer to death? The story of Mr. Kim, who is 70 years old, serves as a vivid example. 5 years ago, he decided to improve his health and began fasting for 16 hours. After 7 in the evening, he ate nothing, and his first meal was not until 11 in the morning. At first, he felt light and happy, but after a couple of years, he developed troubling symptoms. His urine darkened, and at night, his legs were seized by cramps. The examination showed that his levels of urea and creatinine were 3 times higher than normal. The kidneys were working at their limit. Why is this happening? When the body goes without food for more than 16 hours, it enters emergency mode. As a result, muscle tissue begins to break down for glucose, leading to a significant release of nitrogenous waste and toxins. The kidneys are under 5 times their normal load. This is the story of Mrs. Pak, who is 67 years old. She decided to follow a 1-meal-a-day system. All day she fasted, and in the evening she consumed a huge dinner mostly consisting of meat. This became a real shock for her kidneys. For 23 hours they worked in a limited intake mode, and then were subjected to a flood of proteins and glucose. The pressure was rising sharply. The filters could not withstand it. Ketone bodies formed during prolonged fasting pose a danger. These are acids, and the kidneys work at their limits to neutralize them. Mr. Lee, who is 75 years old, fasted for 18 hours every day. His ketone levels reached a critical point, and the acidic blood was literally corroding the tissues of the kidneys, causing irreversible damage. But that's not all. During fasting, we lose not only food, but also water that comes from products, which can account for up to 30% of the daily norm. As a result, many develop chronic dehydration, posing a deadly threat to the kidneys. The second blow is hormonal. If you skip breakfast, cortisol levels spike sharply, and the body perceives this as an emergency. Cortisol narrows blood vessels, causes inflammatory processes, and the kidneys start to break down from within. Look at the case of Mrs. Yoon, who is 73 years old. She ignored breakfast for 3 consecutive years. At first, she felt well, but soon her legs began to swell so much that her shoes no longer fit. Tests showed that her kidney filters were damaged and protein was leaking into her urine. It's important to understand that not all types of intermittent fasting are equally dangerous. For young and healthy people, this may bring temporary benefits. However, for those over 60 whose muscles are weakened and recovery abilities diminished, a prolonged refusal of breakfast can be detrimental. And the most frightening thing is that many believe they are strengthening their health, while in reality, they are destroying their kidneys. But there is another enemy, no less dangerous. It concerns products that people consider convenient and quick for breakfast. In reality, these are silent killers of the kidneys. Many believe that breakfast should be quick and light. Some grab a sausage sandwich, others eat a bun with jam, while some pour milk over a bowl of sweet cereal. The modern pace of life dictates simplicity and speed. But do you know that such convenient breakfasts slowly but surely ruin your kidneys? Here is the story of Mrs. Kya, who is 68 years old. For 20 years, she bought the same ready-made ham sandwich from the store. She thought it was quick, tasty, and convenient. But during the next medical examination, it was revealed that her kidney function had decreased by almost half, and her blood markers reached critical levels. Why did this happen? It's all about phosphates, additives that are saturated in processed meat. A piece of ham can contain 10 times more phosphorus than natural meat. These artificial compounds instantly attack the kidneys, overloading the renal filters and gradually destroying them. Now, about preservatives and colorings. Mr. Chan, who is 71 years old, fried 2 sausages for breakfast every day. Eventually, sodium and other substances used for preserving color and flavor clogged his renal vessels, leading to thrombosis and necrosis of kidney tissue. Buns and sweet pastries are no less dangerous. Madame Kim, who is 65, ate a cream bun or a pie with bean paste every morning. The additives in the dough make the cell membranes of the kidneys rigid. As a result, nutrients cease to penetrate, and cells die one by one. As for the flakes, Mr. Lee, who is 74 years old, was sure he was choosing a healthy breakfast. Every morning he ate cornflakes, but they became the cause of serious problems. The issue lies in the fructose syrup and cheap sweeteners that are generously poured into such products. It is absorbed dozens of times faster than regular sugar and significantly burdens the kidneys. The hidden salt, which at first glance seems sweet, can contain whole grams of sodium. For example, 1 cream bun can contain up to 2 grams of salt, and a bowl of cereal can have up to 3. Combined with soups and other foods, this can easily exceed the daily norm by 3 times. Some believe that sugar substitutes are safer. For example, Mr. Pak, who is 72 years old, chose sugar-free products, but with artificial sweeteners like aspartame and saccharin. As a result, these additives became the cause of kidney cell damage. Chemical substances destroy DNA, provoking inflammatory processes and even increasing the risk of tumors. But that's not all. Processed foods often contain preservatives, such as potassium sorbate. They help maintain freshness for a long time, but accumulate in the kidneys, causing chronic poisoning. Plastic packaging releases bisphenol A, a substance that disrupts the hormonal system and hinders the kidney's ability to regulate blood pressure, particularly affecting the elderly. While you are young, the liver and kidneys handle toxins faster, but with age, this ability decreases by half. This means that the same piece of sausage that previously had no consequences will be much more destructive after 60. Keep in mind, a bun, sausage, sandwich, and a liter of cereal in the mornings are not a harmless breakfast. It's a quiet blow to your kidneys. You won't feel it right away, but the accumulated damage will lead to disaster in 10 to 20 years. And that's not all. There is another morning enemy of the kidneys that many consider useful and even necessary. We are talking about medications and supplements that people take for prevention or pain every morning. Many are convinced that there is nothing wrong with taking a pill if the pain goes away. Someone wakes up feeling heavy and immediately reaches for painkillers. Someone else has joint pain and has been taking anti-inflammatory medication for years. Another person has made it a habit to add vitamins or beneficial supplements to their morning routine. But these morning pills often become silent killers of the kidneys. The story of Mr. An, who is 76 years old, is simply shocking. For 30 years, he took anti-inflammatory medication for arthritis every morning. He bought it over the counter at the pharmacy and took 3 pills a day. In the end, the total expenses exceeded $1,000, and one day, his body began to swell severely, and he found it hard to breathe. At the hospital, doctors confirmed his kidneys were almost destroyed. Why did this happen? The fact is that substances like ibuprofen and naproxen cause constriction of blood vessels in the kidneys, reducing blood flow by 70%. The organs lack oxygen, and the cells begin to suffocate. Now let's consider the story of Mrs. So, who is 73 years old. She suffered from headaches and took 2 aspirin tablets every morning. This drug directly destroyed the mitochondria, the energy stations of kidney cells. The cells lost their ability to produce energy and died. It is especially dangerous to take painkillers on an empty stomach. Mrs. So, who is 70 years old, always took her pills in the morning before breakfast. In her stomach, these substances reacted with acid, forming even more toxic compounds that went directly to her kidneys, literally corroding their filters. And what can be said about vitamins and supplements? Mrs. Khan, who is 67 years old, has been taking glucosamine and chondroitin for a long time to maintain her joints. It seemed that this natural remedy should be safe, but lead and mercury were found in her blood, heavy metals that entered the body through poor quality supplements, accumulating in the kidneys and causing chronic poisoning. Herbal infusions were even more dangerous. Mrs. M, 71 years old, mixed a powder of Chinese herbs in water every morning, recommended for kidney improvement, but it contained aristolchic acid, a potent poison. As a result, her kidneys began to fibrose, shrink, and lose their function. Even vitamins can pose a threat. Mr. Choi, who is 68 years old, took 3 grams of vitamin C daily to strengthen his immune system. But the excess of this vitamin in the kidneys turned into oxalic acid crystals, leading to the formation of large stones blocking the ureter. As a result, he had to lie on the operating table. As for Mr. Pak, 74 years old, he took diuretics every morning. They were excreting too much fluid, causing dehydration and kidney damage. And what if all this is combined? Mr. Chon, who is 72 years old, took 8 different medications every morning for diabetes, pain relief, and supplements. These substances interacted with each other, forming new toxic compounds that harmed the kidneys. And remember, the longer you take the medications, the higher the risk. Even common cold powders or antipyretics contain components like paracetamol, which, with regular use, accumulate in the kidneys and destroy them. Yes, pills can relieve pain, but they also take away your kidney health. However, there is good news. All of this can be changed. It's enough to properly establish morning habits. Next, I will tell stories of people who managed to restore their kidney health through simple but effective changes. Friends, the most amazing thing is that this is real. Even if your kidneys are already damaged, you have a chance to stop and reverse this process. Real stories confirm this. For example, the story of a gentleman who is 80 years old. 2 years ago, his blood creatinine level reached 4.2. The doctors warned that he might need dialysis, as the norm is up to 1.2, meaning his kidneys had nearly lost their function. His family accepted it, and he himself lost hope. But at the last moment, he decided to try changing his morning habits. The first thing he did was slowly drink a glass of warm water, close to body temperature, every morning, right after waking up, sipping it in small gulps over 5 minutes for gentle hydration of his kidneys. Secondly, he completely gave up coffee. Instead, he started brewing barley or corn tea and consumed it only half an hour after meals. Caffeine should not be consumed on an empty stomach. Thirdly, he changed his breakfast. replacing salty soups with light vegetable broths without added salt. To enhance the flavor, he added seaweed and anchovies. Before meals, he carefully rinsed the sauerkraut to remove excess salt. He completely excluded processed foods. Fourthly, he established the rule of the golden 30 minutes. In the first half hour after waking up, he ate and drank nothing but water. During this time, he engaged in light gymnastics and breathing exercises, which improved circulation in his kidneys and gently awakened his body. After 3 months, his creatinine level dropped to 3.8, after 6 months to 2.9, and after a year to 2.1. What seemed impossible became reality. He no longer needed dialysis. Another story. A 74-year-old woman had a high level of protein in her urine, with foam rising in a column. Every morning she took painkillers. But after she completely stopped taking pills and switched to natural methods, warm compresses, light gymnastics, and massage, the situation changed dramatically. Tests showed that the protein disappeared after 6 months. The key was proper water consumption. She calculated the necessary amount of water using the formula 15 milliliters per kilogram of weight. Weighing 60 kilograms, she drank about 900 milliliters of water in the morning, dividing this amount into portions of a glass every half hour. This helped relieve the kidneys and ensured their stable hydration. Mr. Kim, who was 71 years old, went even further. Every morning he checked the color of his urine. Dark meant dehydration, light yellow was fine, and clear was too much. This was how he regulated his water intake. Another secret was the timing of breakfast. After drinking water, he waited at least 30 minutes before eating and never drank liquids during meals to avoid diluting digestive juices. He allowed himself tea only an hour after breakfast. The most surprising thing was that all these people gradually normalized their blood pressure. When the buds recover, they begin to regulate blood pressure correctly again. The conclusion is simple. Everything starts with small steps. None of them made all the changes at once, but each started small and showed persistence. It was this persistence and consistency that ensured their success. Thank you for listening to the end. And now the most important thing. After 40 years of working with patients, I have come to one conclusion. The first 30 minutes after waking up determine what your life will look like. Every morning, upon opening your eyes, you make a choice to drink coffee or a glass of water, to eat salty soup or a light breakfast without salt, to take painkillers or choose natural ways to recover. These seemingly insignificant decisions in 10 to 12 years can determine whether you end up in a dialysis center or enjoy a healthy old age. I have seen many patients who fully restored their kidneys, and they all shared one thing. They treated the first 30 minutes of the morning as golden time for the kidneys and strictly adhered to this rule. At that time, they did not allow anything harmful into their bodies, choosing only what cleanses and strengthens the kidneys. The story of Mr. Choi, who was 75 years old, became a symbol of this approach for me. 5 years ago, he was given a terrible diagnosis: terminal stage kidney failure. He was preparing for his last farewell to life, but instead decided to change only his morning. Every day at 5 in the morning, he would wake up, drink a glass of warm water. At 6, he would start the day with a light breakfast without salt. And at 7, he would go for a walk. This simple routine has accompanied him for 5 years. And do you know what the results of the last examination showed? The age of his kidneys turned out to be 20 years younger than his actual age. Today, he feels like a young man. And you can start from tomorrow without complicated schemes, expensive medications, or special conditions. Just remember 3 simple steps. Immediately after waking up, drink a glass of warm water in small sips. After half an hour, have a light, unsalted breakfast. Never drink coffee or take painkillers on an empty stomach. These 3 simple habits can change the condition of your kidneys and impact your entire life. In a month, you will feel lightness. In 3 months, you will see that your urine has become clear. In 6 months, your blood pressure will stabilize. And in a year, blood tests will show completely different results. But remember, consistency is key. One time will not change anything. It will take at least 3 months for your body to begin to change, and a year to solidify the achieved result. The kidneys are the slowest recovering organ, but once they start to recover, health will remain with you for many years. And remember, kidneys are more important than you think. The heart can be restarted, but the kidneys can only be replaced, or one must live on dialysis. However, all these horrors can be prevented if one takes care of their kidneys in the first 30 minutes of the morning. Share your experience. Tell what changed in your life when you altered your morning habits. Your story can help others. To ensure more people can maintain their health, don't forget to share this video with your loved ones. Perhaps your small step will save someone's life. Soon we will meet again, and I will share even more useful health information with you.